All right, coming in at number 40 on our Locked On Senators NHL draft rankings, a good Canadian boy from the prairies. It's Tanner Howe, Prince Albert, Saskatchewan native, and Regina Pat's captain this past season.
Ross, I'm so excited to get into the Tanner Howe discussion here because I think as far as drafting and prospects go, there's so many intriguing ways you can look at this player, but it has to be said, I think he's one of the most well-rounded prospects we've looked at right now. He's very high on my list so far. And as a captain of the Regina Pats, should we just get this out of the way, Ross? I don't know if people know, but Tanner Howe did play with Connor Bedard. Tanner Howe definitely benefited from playing with a generational talent in junior. You don't have to ask too many people of the WHL whether that helped him or not. However, Tanner Howe also had a great year when Connor Bedard said goodbye to junior and had been playing in the NHL and left the Regina Pats basically bare, because that was a time where you trade a guy like Connor Bedard and you get a haul of picks, players back in return. The Regina Pats did not part ways with Connor Bedard, and they were left a shell of themselves when he left the team.
Yeah, he certainly did. Last year, Connor Bedard had almost 60 more points than Tanner Howe, but Tanner Howe was still third on the team, 1 point behind the guy who was in second. So let's just put it this way. Bedard was on his own planet last year in Regina, but this year, people just see the point production and how it didn't take a step forward. They're like, oh, Connor Bedard. But it's also just the fact that it's barren land around there. They got a new coach, I believe, too. It was John Paddock, old Sens coach, was there before. But Tanner Howe, Bob McKenzie has him as a first-round pick, 25th overall. Chris Peters at 30, elite prospects at 44, McKean's at 37, I should say, and Craig Button at 53. He's a very old player for this draft, November 2005 birthday, and a bit undersized for the style that he plays, 5'10", 175 pounds. He's a left shot centerman, and Pilsy sounds like next year he's going to be going to a contender at the deadline and be one of those hired guns to finish off his junior career.
Well, one of the things I like so much about Tanner Howe, Ross, is he's going to be ahead of the pack when it comes to prospects here. This guy has 207 WHL games under his belt. Like,
what, he started when he was 12?
It's insane. Yeah, you don't get players that have that much consistent experience, all with the Pats. So he's been able to get comfortable. He's the captain of the team, like we mentioned. So he obviously has leadership qualities. Now, this is what I want to get into, though, Ross, because at first you look at the point totals and you talked about it. It went down from last year. And a lot of times you're looking at that and you're saying, oh, in your draft -1 or draft year, you want your points to go up and show that you've improved. But when you're the leading scorer on your team and you're getting 25 more points than the next player, you got to do a lot of that heavy lifting yourself. Exactly. He did a great job. And I'm not going to let typical recency draft bias get it in the way of seeing what a good player he is. Like, I think some scouts maybe are like, you want to see that progression. He had 9 less goals than he did the year before. They're a little nervous about that. I don't really think so. I think he is such a high motor. He plays a physical game. Pronman and Wheeler all talk about how he's a competitor. He's got well-rounded skill. I just feel like this is the type of player that is instantly going to elevate your prospect pipeline. And you can say, we've got a guy who is so ahead of all the other prospects when it comes to experience, playing a well-rounded two-way game. And we think he's going to enter the system and be a pro much sooner than a lot of other guys. I feel very confident saying Tanner Howe is going to play in the NHL. Now, how soon, how long, and in what role? How? That remains to be seen. But this is someone that I think NHL teams are going to look at, and we might even see teams trade up to get him, Ross. I don't think it's that crazy.
Yeah, I think for an organization where it's like, hey, we're trying to extend our window to being a competitive team, it's like you can see this guy in your bottom 6 in the next 2, 3 years, maybe one more year junior where he finishes off strong, gets the offensive pop, and gets to play with good players after the trade deadline, if not earlier. Then 1 year in the AHL, and then bang, he could be on your roster. So I like that, and I think I'm going to call my shot here. I think the Toronto Maple Leafs could be a team to watch for
I
Tanner
hope
Howe.
not.
I know. I just think that's like they took their big swing with Easton Cowan last year. That hit so far, but he's more of like that raw up and coming prospect. I think they go back to the WHL. They got Fraser Minton out of the WHL recently. I think Tanner Howe might be a Leaf. So let's watch how nice we are. But talking to Brendan Purdy as well, who covers the Regina Pats, he's just saying like, look, he's a calm, confident kid, but he's like, you get around him for long enough, he'll start chirping, you having a good time. Just that leadership coming out and trying to make sure everyone's involved, even if they're a pigeon journalist like Purdy. Yeah, you heard me, Purds. All good. Now with Tanner Howe, though, in all seriousness, I see him as a guy who's going to be in that like early second round range. You know what? I'm excited to dive in a little bit deeper to Cole Baudouin. Seemingly a similar player where it's like heart and soul, grit, grind, but some sneaky skill too. So I like the player, and I think he's going to be an early second round pick to maybe a team that is a competitive team. Like I mentioned, I'm looking at contenders to take Tanner Howe, but I'm seeing him as an early second round pick. How about for the Sens, Bills?
Ross, I agree with you. I'm seeing him as an early second round pick as well. How about the 7th pick of the second round at number 39? I would love for the Sens to take him at 39.
5-star?
Easy. I agree with your sentiment that it makes sense to go to a contender, Ross, because you can get him in the lineup, get him on an ELC playing bottom 6 role sooner rather than later. But I think that's a good argument for the Sens to take him. Their prospect pipeline is so barren right now. If you have a guy that you can just inject into there, have him play maybe a season in Belleville and then hop right up, you kickstart that process. And hopefully by that point, the Senators are a contender and you can use him on an ELC yourself. So I got him at 4 stars here, Ross. He's one of my highest rated players. I don't know. I just believe in this kid and I think he's going to be a good player. And I hope the Ottawa Senators are at least taking a look at him.
Tanner Howe, with an average of 38.5, comes in to the Locked On Senators NHL draft rankings at 40th overall. For more draft profiles, go check us out. Locked On Senators.